Hello everyone, welcome to another installment of Tech Talk. My name is Crystal and I'll be your presenter on today. And on today's Tech Talk, we're going to focus on graphics for ministry. I want to let you know that I also included a PDF and it will be available to you all. It's on design fundamentals, what you need to know in order to provide a well-executed design. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so I'm going to have Adobe Illustrator and Adobe InDesign and Adobe Photoshop open for our demonstration on today. First, starting with Adobe Illustrator. And the reason why I picked these three programs is because they have similar interfaces, which I love. So give me 1 second. Pop that down here below. I'm going to open Adobe InDesign and I'll show you what I mean by having the same interface. Pop that down below and Photoshop. Okay, so just to let you know, you can have all three of these programs open at the same time, but it will make your computer a little slow depending on how much storage you have. So what I mean by interfaces, they all open the same way. Once you click the icon, you'll see this page here. You'll have Home, Learn, Open, New File, and some files that you've already started, Lightroom as well, and options to share. You'll find the same thing in Adobe InDesign here in the corner, and you'll find the same thing in Illustrator here in the corner. Now, I think what I'm going to do is create a flyer for Tech Talk, and what I'm going to start with first is putting a photo into Photoshop and resizing it. So I already have a photo selected and I'm just going to drag and drop it over the icon to open up the file. And here we have our image. It is on an artboard. And I do want to describe all the different areas here in the program. So at the top here where it says Photoshop 2025, you will find the menu. Underneath that, by the home button here, you'll find properties. All these little areas here will be, this would be considered the properties area. And then off to the side, you will find the palettes. Okay, this is where you would have all the different swatches and colors and things of that nature. And on the opposite side, depending on how your program opens, you will also find the tools. Okay, highlighted here on the side. Now, you're going to need to have color open. So let's go ahead and go to Windows and make sure color is on. Ooh, look at that. Let me move this out the way. Okay, we've got a palette for color. Then you're going to want to click on layers. I see layers is already available. Let me click off of it and then click back on so you can see where it lands. Layers is also here in our palette. And you can drag this off, by the way. And close that one. I don't really need gradients right now. I'm also going to pattern. I don't really need pattern. So I'm going to go in the corner and close this one as well. Close. And I'm going to put layers up here at the top. Okay. What else you would probably need to get started is swatches. Here we go. Look at that. We have swatches. And you want to also have your tools on. Now tools, like I said, is here in the corner. But if you don't happen to see these tools here, you could just go to Window and click Tools. There's probably a couple more tools I'd like to have open, But for Photoshop, this is just a great place to start. We have our tools in the corner, we have our colors, we have our swatches, we have our layers. Perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and resize this image. And I think I'm gonna make a 8.5 by 11 flyer. So first things first, I'm going to check on the resolution of this particular image. And I do that by going to image size, as you saw here. Went to image and then image size. And I love this particular option because it tells you what the resolution is. So you do want it at 300 dpi. It'll make it nice and sharp and it won't be pixelated. It is close to an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and that's great. It'll give me some bleed, so that's nice. So I'm gonna keep the size the same, its original size. And yeah, everything looks pretty great. So I'm not gonna mess with anything here. I have all my stuff in inches because it's one particular form of measurement that I think a lot of you out there would understand. So let's try to make sure everything that we do is in inches. Picas are typically used by graphic designers, but because you guys are all unfamiliar with that, I think inches would be the best form of measurement. And pixels, that's great. Okay, I'm gonna press OK. We're gonna save this image. Save as. Here I'm saving it as a JPEG. It's great, and they have all these other options of saving it as a PNG for websites or a TIFF. Look at that. All right, so JPEG I'm going to stick with, and then I'm going to call it Tech Talk Background and hit save. I already had it on my desktop, so I'm just replacing it now. And I'm going to have it at the highest quality. I'm just going to press OK. So I'm going to exit out of Photoshop because at the moment I'm not going to need it. So I'm going to quit Photoshop. By clicking letter here because I said I want a flyer that's 8.5 by 11. I'm just going to throw it in here this way. Plop. There we go. Now, these three programs are really great for different components like books, magazines, image resizing, retouching, web layouts, you name it, these programs can do it. And what I love about them compared to a Microsoft program is that you are creating a composition that is kind of similar to creating a collage. Okay, so you're building layer upon layer versus having some more restrictions like you would in a Microsoft program. So this is our background for now. We're just going to leave this here. Again, this is our artboard. This white piece of paper here, I'm calling it paper, is the live area. Oh, the pink line here is your margin. This is the line of demarcation where you have set your margins. You can always change your margins. Here it's set at 0.25, a quarter of an inch. And typically you want a quarter of an inch or more, so that way the text isn't cut off when it's being printed. Okay, so I'm gonna close or minimize this and go into Illustrator because I want to create a logo, and I also want to use tools like Pathfinder. Now you can find Pathfinder also in InDesign, but I like using it here. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a new file. I'm gonna mimic what I have over in InDesign. I'm gonna use 8.5 by 11 letter size. And what I'm gonna do is first create the logo for Tech Talk. I'm gonna go into text, and I'm gonna use the text tool to create some shape. So I'm gonna take that. Please excuse the text that comes in. It's just dummy text. You just delete it. Not all programs are programmed this way, but this particular computer is programmed to put in dummy text. So I'm gonna open up a new text box. All right, I'm gonna put in tech. I'm gonna try to pick a font. And so let's make sure I have that available to me. Aha, type, and I already have character selected. That's great. That's what you want to aim for, is having your characters panel available. We have it down here, and I can move it and maneuver it how I want to. All right, so let me just put it right here. I'll put layers over here, and like I said, let me make sure I have everything else like color as well. Boop, gotta put that on. Now I have color. I also have the Pathfinder tool, which is something I did need. Let me see here. Anything else I want to put here? Got my links selected. I got my layer selected. Got my color selected, which is great. I already clicked on the tools, which we see over here in the corner. I got my characters, which is over here. So I think this is good for right now. I'm not going to worry about anything else. Back to the text. So now that I have that selected, at the top here in the properties panel, you'll see text. I'm going to find a text that I like, the typeface, I'm sorry, that I like. And I love this filter tool. Here you get to pick different types of typefaces: sans serif, serif, slab, script, black letter, monospace, handwritten, and decorative. And what I want is something modern, so I'm gonna go with sans serif, and this should filter out all the sans serif, different sans serifs that I could use. I'm gonna clear this out real quick. Okay, let me pick Gil. Yeah, I think this is a good sans. And I'm gonna bump the size up. Okay, I'm gonna minimize this text box. And then what I'm going to do is put in another text box here underneath it and put, not lore, talk. And oop, look at that. We ran out of space. Let's open up this text box to accommodate. So I'm going to basically grab both of these text boxes. I'm going to go ahead and go into object, and I want to expand it to turn it into a shape. So I'm going to go here and make sure that the object is selected and fill is selected. I'm going to press OK. So now these are shapes, and how you know it's a shape is you're going to go over here to the pen tool, and you see how you have points here on all these different areas. That should let you know that your text has been turned into an object. Okay, so I'm gonna move this down to the corner here, because I think in my plan is to have it in the corner in my actual flyer. Let me see if I can jazz this up a little bit. So we're just gonna stick with this for right now. Then what we're gonna do is I'm gonna submerge this whole artboard in not black but white, and switch the colors over here. In my color swatches, I'm gonna pick white. Now I could use the dropper tool, I can select a color here, or I could just go over here in the corner and select white. So let me cancel that and select white. Okay, I'm gonna go to my layers. I'm gonna put this rectangle all the way down at the bottom. Why? Because we want it to be the background layer. And then I have my text on top. Okay, so I'm gonna take all of this together. I'm gonna use that Pathfinder tool and I'm gonna subtract. Wow, look at that. I subtracted the text objects from the background. So now it looks like a cutout. And you'll see that once I place it over the image that we had resized, the one that I have in InDesign. Okay, now that that's completed, look at that. I'm going to add a tagline of some sort. So I think I'm going to go with empowering empowering innovation, one conversation at a time. Okay, so let me open this up a little bit here. Fix the orientation of the words. And of course, pick another font. Of course. Okay, let's see, let me roll through here. Ah, I like this. This is Futura. Love it. It speaks modernity, the future. I love that. Went away. So now that I've picked Futura by clicking return here, I'm gonna stick with that, and then I'm going to do this. Ah, I like that. Okay, now I'm gonna move this conversation here, and I'll probably bump up the size of this text to 72. Yeah, I like that. Let's see if I can fit conversation a little further. Ah, that's not gonna work. We're gonna have to bump it down just a little bit. All right, so then I'm gonna turn this text into a shape by going to Object, Expand, again checking, make sure that Object and Fill is checked. Press OK. Awesome. I'm going to press Shift, hold Shift down, and click on the background, that white box. So I can use the Pathfinder tool again and hit minus. Ooh, look at that. You know, sometimes things don't work out. I'm going to Command Z to undo what I did. Make sure. Okay. It's definitely all right. So let me hit that one more time. Make sure it's actually turned into, okay, it is definitely objects. I'm going to ungroup them. Believe that's what the issue was at one point. And select it all again. Boop. And use a subtract tool. See what happens here. Let's see. Now, the path that's selected is that. Again, it didn't work the way it worked the first time, which I find to be so interesting. Let's see here. Let's see what happened. I hit another tool, the exclude, Oh, I love it. Now it's working. Oh, look at that, guys. You can see right through it. All right, so we're going to use this. All right, I pressed Command C, and what I love also about this tool is you could just go into the other one and Command V right on top. Look at that. Of course, I'll probably use white. And I want to just stretch that out just a little bit. Remember I talked about that margin. Now, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So you can do this multiple ways, but this is the way I decided to do it. I'm gonna see if I can see any of that background a little bit. Look at that. We created a flyer. Let's take a view at it using screen mode. Instead of being normal where I could see all of the things in the background and all on what's out in the open here, I just want to view what's going to be printed. So I'm going to go to preview. Look at that. Looks nice. Yeah, I like it. All right, we created a flyer using Adobe Illustrator, Adobe InDesign, and Adobe Photoshop. Thanks for joining us for this TED Talk. Hope to see you again.